film festival in 1981, and while the festival was still young and developing, mind you, when it was just beginning to show new independent films and starting to sway away from the classic Americana it had previously been known for in Salt Lake, like Deliverance, True Grit, and A Streetcar Named Desire. Girlfriends was the only movie in its first year that could even really be considered new, and it was only really new to Sundance, and only particularly distinct in being the only Korean film festival movie that was showing that year. By the time it had shown at Sundance, the film had already made its way through the other film festivals, like the International Film Festivals at Rotterdam and at Cannes, and so it was by no means a new showing. In its second year, Sundance would only nudge slightly towards more independent films, but we'd still see many mainstay classics like Casablanca and The Stepford Wives and Psycho. It was only once the film festival moved to Park City that the festival began to find its footing as the venue for independent filmmakers, and it was this sort of establishment in Park City that cemented Sundance as the largest and most prominent independent film festival in America. Sundance rose in prominence as the American opposition to the famed French film festival, the Cannes Festival, a festival which had become so large and so laden with pork-fat-back artistic bureaucracy as to make it an almost entirely unreachable light at the end of the dock. And this is what Sundance was created in opposition to. The irony, of course, is how closely Sundance has followed this course. As it itself has risen in prominence, although it might not quite stack up to the pomp and circumstance that is the Cannes Festival, it has certainly become a much more exclusive event. As we now see Hollywood elites packing the festival while submission standards become ever more stringent year by year, and with the strict regulations on financing and previous directorial history and the prominence of featured actors, most submissions are rejected right out of the gate. And of the thousands of submissions that do get submitted, just over 100 are accepted each year, making it a progressively more difficult film festival to be admitted to year by year. There's also a certain sort of film that Sundance really goes for. They're a bit more artsy. They want their films to make more of a statement, to say something, which I suppose has been a working strategy for them. They have had a lot of movies go on to win the Oscars, 47 by my count. Feel free to call me on that one. It's a hard statistic to count, and it's bound to change year by year, but it does speak to the exclusivity of the event. And just as Sundance rose in opposition to the Cannes Festival and its exclusivity, another new festival would come to oppose Sundance. And it would come out just down the street. If you didn't make it into Sundance, there was another venue that runs at the same time, and this venue caters to all the freaks and geeks. Back in 1995, right around the time Shaggy was topping the charts with Mr. Boombastic, a new kind of film festival was developing in Park City. An opposition to the opposition to the opposition. Slamdance would become an awkward fowl. Goofy, stumbling around, covered in placenta, but somehow still cute in its own way. Within a few years, it would be old enough to gallop and stride on its own. And with Slamdance and Sundance, both happening right at the end of January, Park City would become known not only as America's best skiing destination, but also the secret little surprise film festival capital of America, tucked away in the Rocky Mountains of Utah. And this is where our movie would become hot potatoes. Dave Made a Maze premiered at Slamdance in January 2017, where it was a big hit, starting off a series of film festival awards and accolades. It's a lot of film festivals with long names and long awards, so I'm going to try and abridge this as best as I can for everyone. Here's a series of awards that Dave Made a Maze has won, just over the course of 1 year. Slamdance, Best Narrative Award. Omaha, Best Feature Film. Sun Valley, One in a Million Award. Calgary, Best Feature Film Award. Boston, Best Feature Film. Ventosa, Brazil, Best Feature Film. Florida Film Festival, Best Narrative. Dallas, Spain, Best Screenwriting. Stitches Film Festival, The New Visions, 1 award. Strasbourg Festival, Best Feature Film. Shivers, Germany, Best Feature Film. Finally, the Saturn Film Festival for Best DVD or Blu-ray release. Yeah, it's a pretty heavy list of awards, and it's no big surprise because this is a great bad movie. I've also got a list of film festivals where it premiered but didn't win awards. Yeah, that's all of them. I know, this would really be the time to tell the tale of Sundance, and how Sundance emerged and grew and became the film festival that it is today, and how that growing prominence led to the growing exclusivity, and how that environment, the same environment that the creators of Sundance had endured at the Cannes Festival, how that same environment led to the creation of Sundance's own counterculture cohort, Slamdance.
And I should really be talking about what makes Slam Dance, you know? The truly chaotic, unruly atmosphere that almost brings to the nostrils the hot musk of an 1800s mad haberdashery. But sadly, there's not time for that today. I've ran long on my introduction, so we're going to have to talk about Slam Dance on another day at another time with another film festival movie. And we will talk the great film festival movies of America. But today we brought you the tale of Park City, Utah, the tiny little town nestled away in the Wasatch Back, a town that has rebuilt and reinvented itself several times over. A small little mountain village with a population of just over 8,000 people, and a little village that for 1 month in January of each year transforms from a quiet little skiing town into the independent film festival capital of America. So this is just a small little love letter to you, Park City. Of course, it won't be the last time we talk about you, or about Sundance, or about Slam Dance, but those discussions are going to have to wait for another time, because we've already overrun the time on this intro, like I've said, so maybe it's time we talk about Dave Made a Maze. You know, the premier Slam Dance hit, the Park City premiere, Bill Watterson's low-budget corrugated nightmare brought to the big screen, the one, the only, Dave Made a Maze. So stay tuned.
And with that, I suppose it's time for our pre-show breakdown.
Dave Made a Maze is a live-action retelling of a 2017 tabletop game of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons that went too far and nearly consumed all of its players, while leaving the survivors with deep psychological scars and physical traumas that last to this day. Stemming from the traumatic events of January 21st, Dave Made a Maze tells the horrific tale of a group of role-players without a dungeon master. And the one time they offered a random hobo a Quiznos sub in exchange for running the game for a single evening. Or, of course, until all the players died. Another interpretation is that Dave Made a Maze is a story of Dave, a middle-aged house husband without a job, with nothing left to do, with his girlfriend out of town for the weekend, decides to construct a giant cardboard maze in his living room that nearly consumes him and all of his friends. But again, there are several key and clear clues that this is a game of Dungeons & Dragons. Notice all the snacks. Notice Gordon's shirt. Notice the weird array of people that are only tangentially known to the actual owner of the home. Again, this is a game of Dungeons & Dragons that has clearly gone wrong. And frankly, there are some mistakes that could have been avoided considering how this whole campaign went. Perhaps the players could have used a little advice, a few kind words of caution. As far as playing the game goes, I'm sure I know what you're thinking. You're thinking to yourself, I played Dungeons & Dragons, it wasn't that bad. But what you played was 5th edition, or maybe 3.5. But this, my friends, this is AD&D. This is old school, and you need to be careful because single die rolls and one wrong turn, you can end up really dead really quick in this game. And there's no coming back aside from necromancy. So let's get a quick rundown on all of our players in this movie, shall we? We have Rick Overton. He's our overbearing dungeon master for this brutal AF game, and he's the one who disguises himself as a hobo. Next we have Miro Hikambani, who plays Dave's girlfriend and an effectless paladin. Had she played a druid or an enchanter, she might be able to let that 17 charisma shine, but as it stands, she's no help to anyone, as she's really nothing more than a charming knight with plenty of do-good and no bite. Next we have Nicktoon himself, who plays Dave the Mage. A no-help-to-no-one, spineless little asshole who tertiarily butchered the English language. And frankly, Rick shouldn't have allowed Dave to play with this character. He's the only one over first level, and he's way overpowered. He has conjuration and transmutation abilities that the other DMs just handed out to him, and Rick's just fine with that apparently. He should have made Dave make a new character, but here we are. Next we have Adam Bush, otherwise known as Gordon the Well-Bearded, and his ranger character is fine, but I wish either he or Annie would step up and sort of lead that group. They were kind of more primed for it after all, and it would have been nice to not have so many people die off in the first half hour of gameplay. Next up is James Urbank. He plays Harry, and I dig that he has a big elaborate backstory for Harry about how his father wanted him to be a knight, but he always wanted to be a wandering poet like Homer or the other Greek legends of old, and so he trained in sword training at day and studied book learning at night, and now he's on this journey to compile this epic poem. But the actual choice to cross-class at first level has left your character frail and worthless, and I just hope to dear Poseidon that isn't your downfall. Next we have Stephanie Elaine. She plays Bryn the Barbarian, and I get it. You feel like you're this big badass that can take everything, but still, you still need to stay with the rest of the group. It's important. You're only first level. It's not safe to be running off just willy-nilly like that. Timothy Northwind plays Greg. He's a bard that's having just a bit too much fun with his girlfriend. You all know the type of player. These guys, they have plenty of time to flirt at home. Not paying attention to the game is just going to piss off your socially reclusive hobo dungeon master. I'd suggest getting a 10-foot pole and using it. Frank Chieti, a.k.a. Frank the Tank. He's the boom mic operator and probably the only party member to make it out of the straight 3d6 roll character creation process intact. Okay, so let's get down to some reviews from the internet, shall we? So first we'll start off with our 1-star reviews, and I've got a few of them this time. First, Scott Arndt. This movie is disappointing because it could have been a good movie. The cardboard maze thing is pretty great, and inventive. Unfortunately, the characters are all a bunch of annoying, douchey, unlikable hipsters. Also, none of the jokes are really funny, and the writing is pretty stupid. And bad. If this movie had better written dialogue, and the characters weren't annoying pricks, this would be a pretty good movie. Bobby Levesque. OMG, I can't believe anybody would like this. Even for a comedy, this is so ridiculously bad. Save your time. Joseph. Was this a college film class project? Steph. The weirdest movie ever made. Not true. Not even close to true, Steph, but there are much weirder movies out there, but I appreciate your candor. And for the final 1-star review, I have Sean Barco, whose 1-star review says, quote, "Makes no sense. There's no explanation how the maze was big on the inside." That's the whole 1-star review. Like that's your issue? Like, really, Sean? There's no explanation as to how it's big on the inside? Like, jeez. I mean, it's kind of the premise of the movie. You don't often get explanation for things like that. Like, I can just imagine Sean Barco watching Encanto. He's like, 1 star, this movie makes no sense. There's no explanation as to how the family has magic. But so to be fair, I did get quite interested in Sean Barco after reading his 1-star review of Dave Made a Maze. So I did check. There are other movies he's reviewed. And frankly, he's kind of fascinating. I have no idea what grinds this guy's gears. So let's just go through a few of these, shall we? These are actual review scores from Sean. The Big Sick, 5 stars. Digimon Adventure Try, 1 star. Ghosted Season 1, 5 stars. I'm just like, really, Sean? Dave Made a Maze, 1 star. Ghosted Season 1, 5 star. I fucking hated this show. This show made no fucking sense, Sean. Okay, let's just discuss this show for a moment, shall we? In the beginning of this show, in the very beginning, the Bureau of the Underground, that's what they call them, kidnaps Craig Robinson and Adam Scott so that they can employ them as psychics. Why do they do this? Can you explain to me, Sean, why they drug them in public places and then drag them off through those public sites? All through areas we know are populated? Because you can just say you're with the government, is the thing. You can say, you're with the government, you need to come with me, and that works 95% of the time. And then if they try and run, then you can grab them and detain them, and you can bring them with you. But up until they refuse to come with you, there is no reason to actually just be drugging them and dragging them through malls. Just ask them to come with you. It's not as though the Bureau keeps them detained for any period of time. They immediately let them go. And then they send them out on a mission on their own recognizance. And I could go further on this point about how none of the kidnapping makes any sense, and the further subsequent details makes it progressively more irrelevant. Could you explain to me, why they get to just shoot a nun in the middle of a parking lot only to have breakfast in the adjacent diner with 0 consequences? Because the whole premise of the show is that no one else knows these people are paranormals. And on that point, why does someone tape record them and release that to the press? Why did they even bother to listen to that crap or worry about it? What decent journal would possibly think that was newsworthy? And I don't know why Craig Robinson and Adam Scott have such terrible on-screen chemistry together, but their dialogue in this show is painful. It is awful. I don't know how they managed to pull off Hot Tub Time Machine 2, but good for them, I guess, because this show is borderline unwatchable. And them trying to play off of each other, is probably the worst part of it. And finally,